All right, let's kick this off with a quick little question for thought and review. What is the value of goods sold for September? Well, we've got September 1st, we have starting inventory of 20,000, goods purchased 5,000, and ending inventory 19. Pause video and try and do this on your own. 20 plus 5 is 25 minus 19 will end up being cost of goods sold of 6,000. Now this seems pretty simple, right? But we get to the next one, and this is the focus of this next lesson, which is going to be cost flow assumptions. And here exactly the situation occurs. Throughout the year, Best Buy purchases the same type of laptop from Lenovo, but each time the purchase price was different. If 40 units were sold throughout the year, what was the cost of goods sold? January 1st represents the beginning inventory. And here we've got different prices, and this is where we start to have that problem. Should we end up valuing the cost of goods sold at $200, or maybe we should value them at $300, or maybe we should do the average? And that's exactly what we hope to answer in this lesson. So hang on tight, here we go. Cost flow assumptions. There are 3 of them: FIFO, LIFO, and average. FIFO stands for first in, first out. So this is the cost flow assumption that assumes that the first goods that came in or the earliest ones are the ones that are sold first. So if we're to go back to that example, we'd say, well, these ones, we would sell these ones first. Okay, then there's average cost, and this would be super hard to do if we're doing a physical flow inventory. In fact, it's better to use average. It's impossible to measure a specific physical flow of inventory, and it is better to average the cost. So this one, we average the cost over a period. And then there's the last one, which is LIFO, which stands for last in, first out. Goods that were purchased most recently are usually the first ones to be sold. So each one of these 3 things will change how exactly we value the cost of goods sold. And well, let's go through this with an example. Throughout the year, wow, look at that. This looks like the exact same thing we started with. So what exactly are we doing here? If 40 units were sold throughout the year, what was the cost of goods sold? Well, we've got our first one, which is going to be using FIFO, which stands for first in, first out. So that assumes that these earlier ones will end up going first, but we've got 40 units. So there's 20 units coming from here, but we still sold 20 more. So we sell another 16 here, but wait, that we still haven't made it to 40. Well, we need another 4 more, and we sell them at this price, 4 of them here. So let's just see how those actual numbers work out. This assumes that all the units in January and April sold, and 4 from the September purchase sold. So that means that, well, where do we get these numbers? 20 plus 16 is 36. 36 plus 4 is 40. And that's where these 20, 16, and 4 come from. So the cost of goods sold are as follows: 20 times 300, 16 times 250, and 4, because 4 is our 40, makes our 40, 4 times 200 gives us our cost of goods sold of 10,800. Now there is another way to do this. So here's an alternative calculation. We know that there's a total of 46 computers that were sold. So that means that 6 weren't. And when we talk about FIFO, that means that, well, look here, there's 6 that could be left over from here, and we also know that our total cost of these things is 12,000. What would it be? 12,000 minus 6 times 200. Well, magically, we're going to end up having the same number, which is 10,800. So one ends up looking at how many of these things are and trying to make sure that we go the average, the first in, first out cost, and the other one just says, well, we know that we should have 6 left over. Well, that will be 6 at $200, and we take our total inventory and we subtract it. Using both calculations can verify the other or locate errors. Now we move into the next one, which is the average cost. I'd encourage you to pause at this point and see if you can figure out and try and work through this on your own to see what exactly you think the cost of goods sold will be in this case. We have 46 computers, and in this case we've got a total cost of 12,000. That means that our average cost is going to be 12,000 divided by 46. There we go, which works out to 260.87. That is the average cost of a computer. In fact, if we're talking about all 3 cost assumptions, when we talk about buying and selling stocks, generally speaking, we're using what we call average cost. And that's also a trading strategy. When stock prices start to fall, instead of selling everything off, we buy as it starts to drop. And we don't buy everything. We buy it and we follow it down to get an overall average lower cost on our stock. So that's a strategy that we can use there. Now we're coming back to our example here with the sale of computers. Our average cost is 260.87. How many computers did we sell? Well, we sold 40 of them. So our cost of goods sold will be 40 times that price, which gives us 10,434.80. Alternatively, we could also say, well, you remember how we did that last one? We take this total, 12,000 minus 6 computers left over times that average cost will be another way to do this calculation. Now we notice that there's a slight difference of 2 cents, and that's because we've got these nasty numbers down here, and it is susceptible to rounding errors. So there is some error that can occur. But we're rounding to the nearest cent. Overall, it won't make a huge difference. And then we've got our last cash flow assumption, which is Lifo, last in, first out. So how do you think this is going to go? I'd encourage you to pause the video and see if you can figure out what the cost of goods sold are for this case. If I were doing this, well, we could look at this as in 40 of our goods are starting from here. Well, there's 10, and then there's going to be 10 plus 16, that's 26. We haven't quite reached 40. And then 16 plus 14, so 14 units come from here, which means that our cost of goods sold will be 10 times 200 plus 16 times 250 plus 14, not 20, 14 times 300. And that should give us the cost of goods sold using the Lifo method. Let's see here. So that's this method. The other way you could have done this is to say, okay, well, I know that I have 46. I sold 40 of them. That means I've got 6 left over. And that means, well, because we're using a Lifo, that these 6 that are left over are coming from this 300 cost. So it would be 12,000 minus 6 times 300, which is 1,800. 12,000 minus 1,800 would end up giving us the same number, which is going to be 10,200. So, and here's your alternative calculation. Using both calculations, once again, can verify the other or help you locate errors. And that's it for Lifo, Fifo, and average. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. I hope you understand a little bit more about overall inventory evaluations. Have fun, and if you ever have any questions, reach out to me. I'm here to help.